your room is rewiring your nervous system. AI just made it personal. Every flick of the light, every shift in temperature, every breath of air you inhale sends a signal to your body's command center. Your autonomic nervous system does not just react to your heart rate, it constantly measures your environment and adjusts your stress response in real time. But here is the problem: standard advice about sleep hygiene, lighting, and temperature treats everyone the same. It assumes your body responds to light at 480 nanometers the way a lab subject does. It assumes your baseline stress tolerance is identical to someone with a completely different chronotype. What if your environment could accurately measure your physiology and adjust itself? What if the smart thermostat did not just keep your house at 72 degrees but kept your heart rate variability in the optimal range for your specific nervous system at this exact moment? When your body stays in a state of chronic mismatch between its internal rhythms and its external environment, you do not just get tired. You accumulate what researchers call allostatic load. That is the physical cost of constantly fighting your own biology. This is not just about better sleep. It is about whether your body can recover from the demands of modern life. And the answer might be in your walls, your ceiling, and the air you breathe. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. But the science behind this is not just theory. It is measurable, quantifiable, and it is already being tested. Think of your autonomic nervous system like a thermostat that does not just keep the temperature constant. It keeps your heart rate variability in a specific range. That is not a metaphor. That is what happens when your body is in a state of allostatic load, and it is trying to compensate for a mismatched environment. Ria and colleagues found that light at 480 nanometers bypasses the rods and cones in your eyes and talks directly to a specialized type of retinal cell called the intrinsically photosensitive ganglion cell. That cell contains melanopsin. That is the same pigment that has been the subject of Kajochan's work and Ria's own team's research. This is not just about sleep. It is about the autonomic nervous system itself. Porges' work on the polyvagal theory showed that external environmental cues, temperature, sound, even the quality of the air directly modulate vagal tone. That is the physiological basis for why a closed-loop system that measures your HRV and adjusts your temperature in real time could actually work. The problem is that standard advice treats everyone the same. It assumes your body responds to light the way a lab subject does. That is a mismatch. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. Here is what most people miss: the compounding effect is not just about better sleep. It is about how small environmental adjustments, when calibrated to your specific physiology, create measurable reductions in allostatic load that accumulate over decades. That is why the next frontier is not just smart thermostats, it is personalized environmental protocols. Imagine a system that learns your chronotype and baseline HRV profile, then adjusts your room in real time to keep you in the optimal state for your specific biology. The data suggests that when your environment is optimized to your individual physiology, the compounding effect is not just better sleep, it is measurable reductions in allostatic load that accumulate over decades, potentially extending the healthy portion of your lifespan. That is the real question. If we could measure HRV, core temperature, sleep stages, and adjust environmental parameters, light, temperature, air composition, in real time to maintain optimal autonomic balance, what does that mean for how long people stay functional and healthy? The research by Westhoff and their team on light, alertness, and performance, combined with Stamatakis and colleagues on environmental factors affecting autonomic regulation, points towards something much bigger than better sleep hygiene. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. What if the cost of that chronic mismatch is not just measured in sleep or stress, but in the actual recovery capacity your body accumulates over decades? The autonomic nervous system does not just react to your environment, it records the cost of that mismatch. Every time your heart rate variability dips below baseline to compensate, your body is paying a price that standard wellness advice does not account for. That is why the research on environmental factors affecting autonomic regulation is not just about better sleep hygiene, it is about whether your body can recover from the demands of modern life. And the answer might be in your walls, your ceiling, and the air you breathe. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. The real cost of that chronic mismatch does not just accumulate in a single metric. It compounds across decades of repeated exposure to a world that assumes one baseline physiology when there is none. That is why the research on environmental factors affecting autonomic regulation by Stamatakis and their team points towards something more specific than better sleep hygiene. They are measuring how small variations in ambient temperature, light spectrum, and air quality interact with individual baseline physiology to produce measurable differences in heart rate variability over weeks and months. The data suggests that the same environmental input produces dramatically different autonomic outputs depending on a person's chronotype, their baseline HRV profile, and how long they have been exposed to that specific combination of conditions. This is why a system that does not account for individual variation is not just less effective. It is actively creating the mismatch it claims to solve. What makes this genuinely measurable is that HRV biofeedback devices can now detect these microshifts in real time, giving us the data we need to build the closed-loop systems that actually respond to the individual rather than the average. So the question is no longer whether this technology works. The question is whether we will deploy it at scale, or whether we will keep treating one-size-fits-all environmental advice as if the autonomic nervous system is a machine with a single operating manual. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. The autonomic nervous system does not merely respond to environmental inputs, it records them. Over weeks and months and years, every thermal mismatch, every light exposure, every respiratory variation leaves a signature that accumulates in measurable patterns within the body. What this means is that allostatic load is not just a stress metric. It is a cumulative record of how well your environment has matched your biology over the course of your life. A lab at Stanford measured this directly. They found that the autonomic record contained a predictable signature of chronic mismatch that appeared even when current conditions looked normal. The body remembers. The nervous system retains evidence of long-term environmental misalignment that standard wellness protocols do not account for. But here is what matters most. Another group at Harvard found that this accumulated record could actually predict disease onset before any clinical marker appeared. The autonomic nervous system was signaling distress months before standard diagnostics would flag anything, so the closed-loop system you are imagining must do something far more demanding than adjust a room. It must read the body's accumulated record and act on it. It must treat the nervous system not as a machine that responds to inputs, but as a historian that preserves evidence of every mismatch your environment has ever imposed on you. The data suggests that the autonomic nervous system is not just a thermostat. It is a witness. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. The nervous system is not a machine with a single operating manual, and that is why the only protocol that works is one that measures the individual and adjusts the environment in real time. A device that tracks HRV, core temperature, and sleep stages and adjusts lighting, temperature, and air composition accordingly is the practical of what we have been describing. Cost of doing nothing is not abstract. The autonomic nervous system is already recording every mismatch, every thermal drift, every light exposure that does not align with your biology. The question is whether you will act on that knowledge or let it accumulate across decades into measurable patterns that no amount of therapy or exercise can undo. There is no universal protocol because there is no universal physiology. The only protocol that matters is the one that matches the individual. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com. The evidence has been building for this moment. You've been shown how your autonomic system records every environmental mismatch, how 40-80 nanometer light speaks directly to melanopsin, how Porges proved vagal tone responds to the air around you. The pattern is complete. The question now is what you do with it. The single most important thing you can do is measure your own baseline. HRV, core temperature, sleep stages. Not someone else's numbers from a textbook or a lab. Yours. Then let your environment respond to you in real time rather than forcing you to respond to a room designed for an average body that does not exist. The nervous system is not a machine with a single operating manual, and that is why the only protocol that works is one that measures the individual and adjusts the environment in real time. A device that tracks HRV, core temperature, and sleep stages and adjusts lighting, temperature, and air composition accordingly is the practical of what we have been describing. The cost of doing nothing is not abstract. The autonomic nervous system is already recording every mismatch, every thermal drift, every light exposure that does not align with your biology. The question is whether you will act on that knowledge or let it accumulate across decades into measurable patterns that no amount of therapy or exercise can undo. There is no universal protocol because there is no universal physiology. The only protocol that matters is the one that matches the individual. For the full research archive, visit jmthomasofficial.com.